Hey, hey, hey. Good afternoon. Hopefully, everybody can hear me today. Had a little problem with the audio kicking off the show, but anyway, we're back. Dunkin Dad, Monday, 27th March. Got my friends out there. Anyway, a little slow start. Thought we're sharing everything today, but copyright stuff, YouTube, things like that. Um, Lots of crazy things going on this morning. I woke up to another train derailment, had the water going out in the Delaware here in Philadelphia, mixing up the water, so we can't use it, not supposed to use it, this, that, and the other thing. I still, though, made my cup of coffee in my mocha pot. Take a sip right now for everybody. Delicious, delicious. Wonderful. It's a Kona blend, macadamia nut. Shout out to Ray and everybody for sending me that stuff. Want to talk today about routine. And I know it's like a long time coming, but finally getting back into my personal routine. And I think we find ourselves in situations where when we're forced out of them for whatever reason, it can really affect us. And more so when we get into business arrangements, we get into relationships, we get into job positions, we have to alter and modify our routine. So, routine basically, sequence of actions, events that you do, it's a fixed program. You get up at a certain time between certain hours, or at least at some point during this block of time, you accomplish a set bit of task, right? You either meditate, mind, body, soul, eat, pray, love, Julia Roberts, go watch the movie, read the books better. Um, you have these established so you have some sort of uh, congruency through your day. Like you need a little bit of a system. Anybody who says that I'm just going to wing it, I'm just going to be spontaneous all the time, I love that. However, you can be spontaneous all the time. You can wing it if you have a routine, right? You can't spontaneously get up and go grab brunch at 12:15 on a whim if you haven't been up out of bed, dressed yourself, got in a shower, put your shit in order for the day. If you don't have that going on, it's very difficult to be spontaneous, right? You talk about these little things that we do. Everyone is in their own pattern. Everyone has their own set of uh, ways of going about it. We talked about this earlier on the point perspective before we were out of town about how uh, what works for you might not work for someone else. However, in the framework of that routine, in the framework of this preparation, you've accomplished what you need to do in order to meet the minimum maintenance level for yourself. Sometimes you go overboard, right, which leads to burnout. That's another aspect that we'll get to when we talk about routine and breaking the routine and why breaking the routine can be good. But for the most part, this fairly systematic approach to your day. Sometimes you can slow roll into it. Other days you can kind of shut it down. But for the most part, you really find yourself when you have this routine. So many times we get into those other situations that were aforementioned, and we need to modify or break our routine, which is another reason why, going back to our other conversations, please look back at the vault and watch these programs again. You need to know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, right? If there's some things that you cannot compromise on, you shouldn't compromise on them because they have an adverse effect on you as you try to go about your day, your week, your month, your year. What happens a lot of times is that because of all of these outside environmental factors, we do compromise. There's kids, there's an increase in the work schedule, there's a shift in financial assets, there's a shift in a relationship dynamic where you had flexibility and freedom in one area of your life. Now it's getting compressed. You need to adapt and move over. But if you're aware of what works for you, if you're aware of what really makes the metronome of you, tick and keep the pace, you will find a way in order to keep that routine, even though sometimes it has to be modified. When you are pushed out of that routine, exigent circumstances, there's trauma, there's tragedy, knock on wood, God forbid, uh, knowing yourself, knowing again what you need, all that much more important. Routine, in my opinion, can be more towards the positive than the negative. Some people, they don't like the routine. It's like, oh, I'm in the rat race. I'm just doing the same thing over and over. There's a difference between being autonomous in a routine and enjoying the routine and having the routine work for you. I've never heard anybody sit there and say, man, it really sucks that I get up every day and I exercise and I take 10 minutes and I clear my thoughts, or I journal something, or I veg out to my music to sort of recenter myself. Like I haven't heard someone like, man, that's awful. That's really shitty. I hate doing that. Oh, I wish I could do it. Well, a lot of times you can do it. People just choose not to do it. Everyone has, the 24 hours in their day, and we prioritize those hours. There's responsibilities. There are things that have to be accomplished. You got to keep the roof over your head, food on your table, et cetera, et cetera. But in those other hours, you really begin to find where you put your priority. Where's your routine? What is the thing that's going to be sustainable to you? Had a great conversation, although very brief, with Gary Vee at the Super Bowl. And I will recount and rehash this situation, this conversation, as many times as possible. I asked him straight away. I was like, Gary, feeling a bit of lag, want to apply myself in this particular area of my life. I've got family obligations here. I've got work responsibilities here. How do I punch through that glass ceiling? What do I need to do? And I'm going to get this video from Play Action. He has it on his phone, I believe. And he basically said to me, how much time do you need? And I was kind of taken back. I was like, how much time do I need? I was like, everybody would take, however much time is possible. He's like, no, and it's like, you got X amount of hours in a week. How many of those hours do you actually need FaceTime with X, Y, and Z? Like, what are your requirements? And I was like, holy shit! Like, I never thought about my personal thresholds in that degree, right? I thought of them in the matter of, well, between 4 o'clock when the kids are done school till 7 o'clock a day or 8 o'clock a day, like boom, that's it. That's my responsibility. That's where I'm focused. That's what I need to do. Or I go to the gym between this time and this time, and that's my focus. And they said, well, we give ourselves these time frames that we operate in. Oh, between this hour and this hour, we're going to do this. And you're looking at it like it's your obligation, it's a task, it's a responsibility. All those are noble things. However, how much do you need this? And it's like, well, really, I only need X amount of hours of FaceTime. I only need X amount of hours of gym time. I only need X amount of hours in order to achieve the goal that I want to get to, like what I want to give and get out of this situation. Obviously, you're going to be available. Obviously, you're going to be present. Obviously, this isn't the beginning and end all and the perfect formula for anything. But when you are applying yourself in other areas of your life, especially in your own personal self development, you could sit around and meditate for 3 hours, right? I mean, after 45 minutes, an hour, you might be done. So why do you need those extra 2 hours? If those 2 hours are beneficial to you, if those 2 hours are really resonating with you, okay, just know that now you've taken 2 more hours out of your allotted time that you're now not paying attention to something else. You're not preparing for something else. You're not, giving the attention in these other areas, and that's fine. That works for people. Again, knowing what works for you, but getting back to Gary's point, being able to tell yourself, I'm okay if I only have X amount of hours, X amount of minutes of this. People need 10 minutes. Some people need 20 minutes. Some people need, hey, I'm going to go to the gym. And well, they need like 15 minutes beforehand. Then they got to get there and they got to get in their mindset. Then they got to sit down. Then they start doing the routine. And really, they're only actually performing 30, 45 minutes of actual work, but it's like a 2-hour event. And he's like, well, look at those times. Look at what you're really doing in those times. Now you can shut it down. You can relax. You can take it easy if that's part of your routine, if that's what you need, if that's what sustains you, if that's what keeps you going. Be it healthy, be it nice. Like you're not coming home from work and like, I need to shut it down for an hour. And as you're shutting it down for an hour, you're twisting off the Johnny Walker, and throwing back shots. And then you're like, oh, fuck, I feel like shit the next day. Or, I never know why this shit never gets done. Well, look at the routine. Again, healthy habits, healthy approaches. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't indulge. Doesn't mean that we aren't allowed to enjoy those aspects and parts of our lives. But having a base, having a foundation, having the blueprint that's sort of carrying us through, and being able to identify specifically the the goods, bads, the highs and lows, the triggers, and the responses that you have in those times, in those hours that you're allotting and giving your energy, will make you a much more well-rounded person. Now, caveat, like anything, right? Too much of a routine sometimes you fall into this autonomy, the autonomy. Oh my God, here we go again. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So it might be beneficial. It might be uh, good for your body. You may see results. You may see changes in your mindset. You may see changes in your relationships. You may see work productivity go through the fucking roof. But you will plateau at some point. And when you are approaching that plateau, that's why people switch up their workout routine, right? That's why people switch out, their meditation. That's why people find different disciplines in order to uh, address these little needs. Because hey, I can't go run outside if there's 3 feet worth of snow. I can theoretically. I mean, shout out to Bernsey for going out there in Tahoe in like 7 feet of snow with no shirt on and running like an animal. Savage, savage, Bernsey, savage. But that's just that doesn't work for my routine. I mean, I love the snow. I grew up in the Poconos. I mean, I get pissed off when winter is not winter. I feel like if you're going to have 4 seasons, you should have 4 seasons. I want a nice, beautiful, bursting spring. I want that really, humidity, hot, beachy sun, a couple cool days here and there, the nice evenings in the summertime. The fall, I want that crisp, crackling, fall air where it kind of pinches at your nose and you get the little s'mores going and the fire pits going and you're sitting around, got a nice baggy sweatshirt on, your jeans, you feel all comfortable, you're snuggling up, with somebody. Winter, I want to be all cuddly and nice and picturesque and, hallmarky in my head, but at the same time, it's, things are shut down, man. It's like that's the ultimate, like, bring it back to total neutral and just kind of here we go. While you're coming back through neutral, you're still trying to hit some of these hallmarks, some of these routines that you do in order to keep yourself sane. If not, what? Cabin fever, right? That's where people go away in the wintertime because it becomes so apparent so quickly. Like, hey, there's nothing. Like, there's like the life itself outside has come down and shut down. At least that's how I see things. That's part of my routine. That's part of how I want to experience. So if you have an opportunity, if you can break routine in that instance, you can go travel. You can go watch a movie, go read a book, take time with friends. Do that. Switch it up. Switch it up a little bit, but be cautious not to lose your routine in the service of others. Man, that's deep, right? Man, that is so deep because what happens a lot of times is we do, right? We lose ourselves. Not cabin fever starts. What's up? What's up, BW? How you doing? Yeah, man, cabin fever, right? I think Buffett cabin fever. You know, boat drinks, right? That's the song, boat drinks, and waitress and even more boat drinks. Yeah, 20 degrees and the hockey game's on. So, yeah, you do. You be careful because a lot of times what we do as good individuals, and your size is coin again, is that we lose our routine in the service of others. That we begin to tailor ourselves and what we do around others. Again, responsibilities, I get that. Kids, I get that. Um, Career aspirations and goals, you want them to work hand in hand and coincide as you're going forward. But for the majority of people, you know, we listen to a lot of the noise, right? We listen to what's going on with other people because we feel like we have ourselves all situated. We feel like, oh, we got it under control. We have everything in order. I don't need to really pay attention to myself as much because I'm sort of in this little pattern. I got a good thing going on, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. And we make ourselves available in the service of others, in the service of a greater good. And you're losing a little bit of yourself, right? We talked about this before when we come into relationships. We talk about compromise. And so, do you compromise? Do you not compromise? Should you compromise? Should you work hand in hand? You don't really want to change who you are. Should you change who you are? Should you uh, do a complete 180, or should you learn to, work together in any sort of entity? That's really like the ultimate, that utopian mindset, right? Because the greatest thing that we have always moved towards in our conversations about any aspect of our life, personal, mental, physical, emotional, uh, relationship, career, is finding this balance, right? But in order to find the balance, you got to know your side, right? You have to know who you are. It takes time, it takes experience, it takes usual and unusual circumstances to see how you react, to see how you give back into that energy, how you take from that energy, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what you're willing to tolerate, what you aren't willing to tolerate. Um, all of this is getting to know who you are, knowing who you are, knowing how you work, lends to building a good routine. That's why when you have certain institutions like the military, right, we have certain institutions like law enforcement or medical doctors. That's why they're very strict with a routine, right? They have a goal outcome. Everybody needs to be on the same page. Everyone has to work hand in hand, hand in hand, hand in hand in order to get to this end goal. That's why they break you down and they build you back up in a particular pattern or form, right? Because the entity operates this way. When we enter into relationships on every level, right? Career, self, blah 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 blah. We're we're doing that with the other person, place, or thing. You have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and not be afraid to put your hand up and be like, "Hey, that doesn't work for me. Like, I'm not going to settle for this. This does not make me a better person. This is what I need." Now, within the construct of that, you have to sometimes work around things. You can't tell your boss like, "Hey, not going to be in today till about 10." Because I got to, gym and then power smoothie and shower and shave. And I want to tidy up a little bit. And, I got some things going on before 10. I can be in about 10. No, that, that, that doesn't necessarily fly in that particular career path. However, start your own business, right? Put the time in, put the effort in, make your own schedule. Then, yeah, guess what? You can start to do those things. Again, what you're willing to do in order to keep or maintain your routine. Um, basic routines, daily stuff, right? Let's knock on that a second. Mind, body, soul. So I don't, uh, as much as people don't want to believe it, as much as people don't want to admit it to themselves or open up that little mind, feeling, emotion component, you should be grateful when you wake up, right? And you should be grateful and kind of do, like a 30-second inventory of like, hey, I got a roof over my head, clothes on my back, food on the table. I've got, as much of my health with me as I can, because there's people a lot worse off than that. An attitude of gratitude goes a long way. Um, I was guilty for the longest time. Like, oh, here we go again. Oh my gosh, same routine. This sucks. Blah blah blah. Well, that was the problem. It's the problem, dumbass. The dumbass was you weren't happy in your routine and you weren't speaking up and saying anything in order to change it, or you weren't taking the active steps to change it. All this shit starts with your personal responsibility. You got a responsibility to yourself. If you don't have a responsibility to yourself, you don't have a responsibility to anyone. You can't be out there like the old man in the sea looking for the biggest catch in the world, not giving a shit, right? Like uber focused on this other shit that's happening. I mean, come on, like engage yourself. You get past the little hiccups to where you're like, man, it was such a fucking horrible day. It was so awful. I could do the same thing over and over. I got to pay the bills. I never had any time for myself. I don't get the time to do this. You have plenty of time to do it in your day. You choose not to because you fill it with other things that you think are supplementing the greater good routine. Now, again, this doesn't mean that you don't have responsibilities. This doesn't mean that you don't have obligations. Those are givens. I hate when people you're like, oh, you're making a generalized statement, Duncan. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah 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 blah. I do know what I'm talking about because at 10, 11 o'clock at night, or 9 o'clock at night, when you have a moment to yourself, what are you doing in that moment? Are you bitching? Are you complaining? Are you putting yourself down? Are you uh, scrutinizing over every single little thing? Or are you sitting there going like, hey, you know what? Let me journal something. Let me read a book. Let me watch something that is going to enlighten me and educate me, or take my mind off of this reality that I find myself in, but it's going to give me the energy that I need. Some people watch trashy reality shows. I'm guilty of it sometimes. Some people watch, you know, Investigate Discovery. Some people watch the Lifetime stuff. They're like all these things, but 9 times out of 10, you're trying to tailor this to someone else or some other um, medium that's going to have a little bit of empathy for whatever it is that you're going for, yeah, that you're going through. Find something that is positive and will sustain you, because what you think of when you go to sleep, that's how you're going to wake up. Your subconscious mind is going 24/7. It's always thinking, always thinking, always thinking. It's pulling on environmental and outside stimuli and processing in the back of your brain, just waiting for a moment, to come forward. So again, you sit down, you have 2 minutes to yourself. Take 2 minutes to yourself. Take a deep breath. Yeah, maybe put on some mindless television, but relax. But do something in a positive manner that's actually going to give you some respite. It's going to give you some energy, going to give you something to make whatever it is that you're going through, although it's not always easy, tolerable, enjoyable, um, a little bit of affirmation. And sometimes that sucks, right? Sometimes you got to be your best cheerleader. It's like all these little corny things you used to see in school when you were coming up, at least when I was in school, because we could talk about these things. Um, they would say like, you that be your biggest cheerleader. Tell yourself you can do it and you can do it. You can be anything. And we all know there's limitations, right? I mean, like, however, the mentality of like, hey, like, yeah, I can do this. I could get there. It'll be all right. Someone always has it worse than you do. And it's really true. It's really true. Like the minute you think like, oh my God, it's coming down the road, sucks, this is horrible. And you might be that person who has it worse the one day. I'm not putting anybody down in any situation down. But we we really take for granted how we interpret, our life and our problems sometimes. Um, I've done the woe is me. I've laid in bed. I've done the whole, oh my God, I'm so depressed. And the world hates me. And I'll never do this again. And I mean, everybody has those days and those moments. But when you have something of structure, something of positivity that you can go back to that works for you. Now, I'm not saying that like, getting high every day works for you. I'm not saying like, you need to go and like do a line of coke. I'm not saying anything like those things, temporary fixes. Like even the coffee, right? Love coffee. It's a stimulant, right? Gives me a little pep. I like it. I can't drink coffee 24/7. Like there's other parts that I need. I need water. I need juice, some wine every now and then. But the point being is that you have to find a balance in this routine, knowing yourself, knowing what works for you, and make sure that you're not conforming. And I know it's like selfish. Oh my God, don't be selfish. But if you're not in tune with yourself, you really can't be any good to someone else. You really can't. Because when you're then faced with an obstacle, a hurdle, your reaction isn't going to be positive for the situation, right? You're not going to be open to talking things out. You're not going to be open to hearing both sides of the story. And one of the things that we, excuse me, really champion on this program is you need both sides of the story, right? You need to hear both sides. You have to be prepared to hear both sides. You have to have these tools in your toolbox that, hey, guess what? Their way of seeing something, their way of going about something is different than mine. And we might still get to the end goal. And although they might get there faster, I might get there faster, however it is, that's what works for them. That's what works for this. We make compromises. Sorry, we make compromise. We enter into agreements when something is uh, employment, employer to employer, or when we enter into a particular institution. Right? There's just certain ground rules that come along with it. But again, you know this going in, eyes wide open. Right? It's like, oh man, didn't realize this whole boot camp thing meant getting up at 4:30 and taking a 10-mile jog. Sorry, not for me. You knew that going in, right? You knew that they were going to break you down. You knew that they were going to bitch and yell and complain at you for a reason, right? Uh, Coaching, right? You know that there is going to be a component of constructive criticism. If you don't want the constructive criticism, don't spend the $50 a month getting a personal coach, because you're going to pay for, in your mind, $50 a month or a week, whatever, for someone to bitch and complain at you, and you're just going to hate it. And then everything going forward is like, it's horrible. This sucks. They were so mean. They're all like this. And then you see what happens. This one posts one friend, and they tell one friend, and they tell one, and boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden, all the coaches, all the personal coaches in the world are just, greedy MFers who bitch and complain all the time, and they sit on their high horse, and they don't really care about you. No, they're probably just really decent people doing their job. But your routine and knowing yourself hasn't allowed you to get to this point where you're like, hey, wait a minute. I can see the benefits. I can see why we're doing this. I can see why it's important that we keep this routine. However, again, like we mentioned before, too much of a routine becomes stagnant, becomes autonomous. You need to switch it up. You need to flip the program up a little bit. That's why when you get up one day and you go running, or it's like, hey, everybody hit the lot, everyone, online attention, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, hey, guess what? We're not running today. You're like, oh, that's awesome. Today we're going for a hike. And you're like, oh, shit, that's great. Guess we're going to do a hike today. But you are able to adapt, right? It's a test of adaptation. It's a test of what kind of fortitude do you have inside yourself that when faced with something out of the ordinary, something that you weren't expecting, can you move in a positive manner towards that end goal? Why is this important? Because, like Oprah said, like so many great people said, preparation meets opportunity, and that's luck. Yay! You get a car. Yay! 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 You do. It's not it. There's a million opportunities that you come across in your day, provided you put yourself in position. Right? You cannot be a non-active participant in the world in general and expect opportunity to show up. Does not work like that. Even the nerdiest, geekiest kid sitting in their mom's basement that's banging out code is got opportunity. He's sending it out. She's sending it out on the computer. They're playing games. They're doing whatever. They're hammering their talent within their routine, taking an active role in what is it they want to accomplish. Sometimes all you want to accomplish is to have a happy day. Just have a happy day. That's cool. Don't really want to be involved with two people, too much. Don't want to do this and that. But at some point, you're engaging yourself, right? So there's always an opportunity that you have, whether it be yourself, whether it be public, whether it be, private, to make positive decisions. Do what works for you, right? Do what works for you, knowing what works for you. But this whole idea of good fortune, oh, that person is they're just a fortunate person. Everything comes their way. They're so lucky all the time. They're lucky because they have a routine. They're lucky because they're prepared. And we talk about preparedness, right? And all of these little bulletin board posters that we used to see really begin to make sense, right? It's like, by failing to prepare, be prepared to fail. And it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Success is where opportunity meets preparation, or, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. Whatever kind of variable you want to put into that, there is a component of being prepared. But why is being prepared important? Because if you're not prepared, if you don't know what you need, who you are, what you are up against, then you're never going to establish any bit of a routine that's going to be beneficial for you. You know what you're going to do? You're going to survive. And you're going to survive by any means possible, right? If you're not able to prepare, if you're not able to get over these little hurdles, that's where you have these moments where people break, right? People snap. People sometimes do something so dramatic to get out of whatever it is going on. job, career, life, self, relationship, doesn't matter. And it's like, in order for me to really do this, I need to physically or mentally or emotionally check myself out because this is too much. This is too much. And people take on too much sometimes. Responsibilities, yes. Job, yes. I'm not getting that and not giving that away. But you do not want to continue to waste your energy on something that is not returning a benefit to you and your routine. And it's not selfish. It's making sure that everything is working in concert with one another. That's why we have different roles in relationships. So we have different roles at the job. That's why there's, you know, build a car, build a house, right? That's why not everybody's all carpenters, right? You need electricians, you need plumbers, you need glazers, you need masons, you need architects, you need electrical engineers. You need all of these people in order to make this final goal. But you have to know exactly what it is that you're doing. And that comes with preparation. It comes with knowing, like, hey, you know what? I need to prepare myself for this day. I know that this particular avenue works for me. This doesn't work for me. But if I am faced with a situation that's uncomfortable, if I'm faced with where, hey, guess what? I didn't have a real cup of coffee for 10 days. I'm fucking pissed off. How do I navigate that? How do I manage that? How do I push myself through that? What skills, what coping mechanisms do I have built into me, into my routine that will carry me through? And there are usually three, like there's usually three, two or three really big ones that we can do. One, you can always have some sort of meditative thought, right? Regardless of what is happening and going or circumstance, place, environment, you usually have moments. And granted, depend upon the stimuli of the environment, which could be really abusive, which could be really loud, whatever it is, that changes the dynamic. But again, thought, right? You have control over your thoughts. You should have control over your thoughts. Let me say that you should have control over your thoughts. You should be able to independently think, operate without any sort of unbiased. The other side, if you are able to, is some sort of movement, right? We're all able to do some sort of movement. Some people it's to walk around the block. Some people it's up and down the steps. Some people it's from one room to the other room. Other people sit there in your chair, twiddle your thumbs. Some sort of physical engagement that puts your motor skills to work, and you begin to feel this little bit of shape, this little bit of form in the world. Like you have total control over you. Again, Murphy's law. Like you have total control over what you're doing and what you're manipulating. Right? It gives you a sense of ownership. Right? Your thoughts are yours. Your movement is yours. Your reaction and your emotion should be yours as well. A lot of times we find ourselves in positions where we cannot express ourselves. We cannot let our emotions sort of guide that moment because the reaction from whatever else that we're surrounded or involved in, mm, it would have a really poor outcome for whatever reason. And then that gets back to you being prepared, knowing yourself, knowing your means, knowing your limits, knowing what you're able to compromise, what you don't want to compromise. Are you able to get away or not able to get away? Are you able to change? Are you not able to change? You have one life, dude. You got one life, lady, whomever you are. You will be given opportunity in your life. What you do with that opportunity is going to 100% be based on how prepared you are, what your routine is, and where you find yourself. Right? Very, very, very seldom do we find people that just have complete, you know, uh, dumb luck moments. Oh, it could just be, right place, right time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, we're talking like, Beverly Hillbillies. You know, I'm out hunting for rabbit and I shoot the ground and I, hit an oil there, oil. And like, okay, cool. Like, that's not going to be the norm. Now, if this guy was like a prospector and he maps and scales and blah 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 and topography and all that, and like boom, let's dig right there. Boom, there it is. He's got it. Like those things will happen more often than just fluke stuff. And sometimes those fluke things are great. Like it's a reminder of uh the beauty and simplicity sometimes, right? But 9 times out of 10, when you find yourself in a situation that is advantageous, fortuitous, the happenstance, the moments of, oh, wow, this is kind of cool how this all worked out. If you look back and you really see what you have done to get to this point, you are just waiting for that opportunity to come into your existence. And just at this particular moment now, because of being prepared, because of the routine, because of knowing thyself, because of all of these other things being put into the right position, it's like, boom, there it is. Now you see it, right? You can only take advantage of opportunity when you can see opportunity. You can only see opportunity, prepare for opportunity. You can only prepare for opportunity if you know who you are and you know what actually works for you. It's not selfish. It's not selfish at all. That's how the world moves forward. That's how great relationships are built. There's nothing worse than being in any sort of arrangement, relationship, agreement, contractual obligation, a business setting with someone, and you have no effing idea what they want, what they think, what they expect. It's horrible. But yet you're going through the motions and shit's getting done, but you're just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here, but I guess things are working out okay. I guess it's all right. It's like, boom, here's more responsibility. Oh, this is cool. All right, well, let's get like, oh, we just got a raise. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Oh, okay, all right. I guess I'll hang around a little bit more. Da, 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 da. And all the while, you're like, what are we doing here? Right? Like, what is the end goal here? You can have all these things prepared, opportunity, meet, blah, 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 circumstance, happenstance, whatever you want it to be. Communicate, 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 and find the balance. Like the great Abraham Lincoln once said, I will prepare and someday my chance will come. Um, you have to, you have to be good, work on yourself. And for people who say that, hey man, Dunk, there's not time for that. I have too many things going on. I'm trying to really get to my goals, but blah, 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 blah. Go back to my conversation with Gary. What are you doing with those other hours? What are you doing with those other hours? Well, I need 8 hours of sleep. Then why the fuck were you up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching every game in the world? Why were you up going down watching all the TikToks in the world? Only to bitch and complain when you got to get up at 6 o'clock and go to work. Right? Take those 3 hours and work on what it is you want to go towards. But we're sitting in a world of information that has never been available to the general people ever across all of history. You can literally teach yourself anything if you want to. And 85 to 90% of the traffic on the internet is non-educational based whatsoever. I'm not saying you're going to be a bookworm. I'm not saying you're going to be, academia nut, philosophy nut, or whatever. But do something positive with the time. Do something that's actually going to benefit you. And like we've fallen out of this because there was a time when if you wanted to know something, you actually had to invest yourself in the journey and in the discovery of that information. If we want to know philosophical quotes, if we wanted to know who said what, if we wanted to know a particular statistic about something, you had to actively find that information, read that information, digest that information. And in that process, oh my God, full circle here, Duncan, in that routine, um, you became a better person. You were more well-rounded. Now it's easy. It's like, what's the population of India? Oh, hold on a second. Well, Google tells me it's this. Oh, that's cool. And that's awesome as a tool. But what we've lost is we've lost the work about it. Yeah, exactly. Like Brian says, we got to carry ourselves to the library. I said this the other night, like in Minnesota, you know, not Minnesota that way, but we're talking about the baseball stadium, blah blah blah. But remember going to the library, all right? The Dewey Decimal System. You sat there and you looked, okay, zeros to ones, ones to twos, two to threes. What's in there? Who's this? And then they brought in science fiction. That fucked everything up. I was like, whoa, where's the science fiction section? I was like, oh, okay. There's periodicals and there was the Atlas. The sort of like big ass books, the microfiche. Like we've all been there if you've gone through this process, or at least you've been exposed to it. Yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica used to make a ton of money on TV. I remember we used to get one book per month, for the 12 months. By the end of the year, you had, the first volume of this, and the second volumes came out of it. But in those books was your Google, right? It was the information that if you wanted to figure out about something, you went there. Now, granted, right? Here's the catch with that, right? Whatever's put in the book, you're probably going to take it on face value, right? Now we have the internet. You could probably dig a little bit deeper if you want to find a little more information than just surface level. Shout out to the citizen journalist. Shout out to the individuals who really want to, create a Web3 environment where, look, I understand there's narratives. I understand that there's particular ways that people will push us and guide us. And it's been going on since the beginning of time. Like it really has. But when you're living in a particular area and like, oh, everything is great, everything is fine, when in actuality, you're like the little meme with the dog sitting down at the table, drinking the coffee, hat, there's fire all around. It's like, oh, this is fine. This is good. This is fine. Like you should be aware of that, right? You should be aware of that. Like there's certain things, general population, you probably don't need to know about it. Like you really don't need to know about it. Like is my country secure? Yeah. Okay. You guys, can we take care of that, please? Are the borders okay? Can we, kind of take care of that, please? Because then it's not a matter of like you don't want to help people. It's like if I got a piece of pizza, right? And it's got 8 slices, I can only cut that son of a bitch up so many times before I run out of pizza. Then I got to make more pizza, right? I mean, that's just a very analytical, logical approach. You're not trying to be a dick, right? But that's like when you sit down at the table and you're sitting there with your 3 kids at a birthday party. When it's like, okay, everybody, we got a cake here, and they're like, I want the biggest piece of the cake. And you cut this big ass piece of cake, and it's like, well, there's nothing left for anybody else. Sorry, and there's lessons about that. I mean, my grandmother one time, she made like little tortas with jelly and stuff on the inside. And my youngest brother, all the time, it got to be like one time was funny, 2 times was like obnoxious, 3, 4, 5 times was like, yo, dude, like you're purposely grabbing the biggest one, just because you can. You're not letting anyone else even have it, share it, try it, blah 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 blah. You're taking a little too much. So she's like, listen, she pulled my brother aside, myself, and she's like, listen, I'm gonna make these things today. She goes, do not touch the biggest one whatsoever. So leave it for your brother. She's like, I'm like, okay, cool. So bakes the thing, dinner's done, out comes the tray, boom. Sitting, this one's huge. I mean, it was like probably like the size of a softball. The other one's, maybe tennis ball size or whatever. Right away, he grabs that thing, puts it down. He goes to take his knife, he cuts into it, completely empty. Nothing inside whatsoever. The other one's like oozing with stuff, And she kind of looked at him, and he looked at her, looked at him, looked at her, and she was kind of like, And he was like, oh, okay, lesson learned. Okay, lesson learned. Point being is, yeah, they would sell them everywhere, man. They were hustling with the Acme. You said them at Pathmark. We had them at the Acme, hustling the encyclopedias. And there was like different kinds, right? There was like Encyclopedia Britannica, and then I think there was like I think there was a Miramar. There was like I think there was like a Thomas version or something like that. It was kind of like the step down from Encyclopedia Britannica. Like it wasn't illustrated as nice. Still the information in it. The point being is that you have hours in the day, you have time in the day, you have a routine, you have something already established that you do. Whether you think you do or not, you do. Some people are slow rollers, slow out of bed, and they wake up and they, hit the head, light up a cigarette, sit down, put the news on, start bitching and complain about something. Yeah, that's a really shitty way to start your day. I mean, this is America. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. But I mean, when you set the bar that early about it being crappy and horrible and whatnot, and we're guilty of it. I mean, like I said, I woke up and I'm like, oh great, what's going on now? What's happening now today? And it's almost a comical response for me now. It's like we had a train derail outside Chicago. We had a train derail in North Dakota. We got the water flowing into the Delaware over here, coming through the water system for Philly. I was like, if I didn't know any better, you'd think somebody was purposely doing something. And you're like, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Nashville, Covenant School, Presbyterian. Yeah, 5 dead at an elementary fucking school. A Presbyterian Covenant School, Metro Nashville Police Department. I'm recalling this one I just read. They had shooting. Like, I mean, what the fuck, man? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying you need to. That's a subject for another day, because I'll get into the whole school thing and choice thing and bullying and what the teachers can say, what they can't say, what they do now, what they don't do, what they coddle and they shouldn't coddle. You know, real brief. Society has a routine. Uh, People, personal development, the world in general has a routine. Mm. At moments, very conservative. At moments, it's very liberal. At times, we go way too restrictive. I mean, we lived through the whole, 19, 20, 22, 23, the COVID stuff. Um, Abundance of caution, maybe. Overreach, maybe. Um, Telling people what they can. I mean, like, all of that's this conversation. The other side is like, hey, do whatever it is that you want to do. Dance around half naked in front of little kids, and if you don't like it, you're the problem. Like, okay, I'm trying to find the balance here, but why? Like, why are we having these problems at schools, like elementary schools? I mean, I'm not saying that there's a hierarchy of whatever, but you know, could you see? This is horrible to say it even, but could you see someone of a particular acumen, uh, like Columbine, like this kid's pissed off, everyone's been bullying him, he snaps, he's got accessibility to, a cache of whatever he's got accessible to, he's throwing out all these signs, no one's paying attention to him, like, and he's okay. Like, but in elementary, like, who the fuck goes back to an elementary school? Uvalde, Parkland, the school they demolished up off of the high northeast, and now this. Like, why? It's a fun, and I've go back and watch this episode. And we'll bring it back up again. I'm glad Vito brought it up today. It's a fundamental issue. Fundamental. My breakdown of is the function of the mind, that the very basic operation of the mind, what we justify, what we don't justify, what we let fly, what we don't let fly. And we're at the point on the pendulum where the greater majority of these situations and places and instances where it's shootings every day, Chicago, Philly, Baltimore, DC, Lewis. I mean, it's the norm, right? I mean, California used to be amazing. It's like drug haven right now, like legit. And people, like, they've got like the majority of the homelessness in the country. That's horrible. Like, that's freaking horrible. Like, what was the basis of letting that routine get this far along? Right? Like, no one was prepared for this whatsoever. No one saw this coming. Or if you did see it coming, no one prepared for it. No one put themselves in a position so that when this epidemic level of these actions started to take place, everyone's like, well, what do we do? 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 What do you do? What do you do? You've got to go back and readjust and change your whole mindset. Like, if shit hasn't worked for 60 years, there's newsflash for you. It ain't fucking working. It's just not working. I mean, like, we're so quick to call out every single other thing. Don't stay with that man. He's horrible for you. Don't stay with that woman. She does this, blah, 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 blah. That's after like 3 years. Because people are seeing, like, oh my God. And we can't see what's happening on a bigger picture and a bigger level. And this is the world of this is the world over. This isn't just isolated to like small town podunk EBF America or like big city America. This is the world over. I mean, like, things are not on a very uh, consistent and sustainable path, right? That's the other thing about routine, right? Your routine and your preparedness, as we finish today, has to be sustainable, right? So if you have a lot of going on in your personal life, you have a lot going on in your relationship, you got a lot going on in your career, and you know that you have 2 to 3 hours a day, maybe an hour in the morning, an hour at night, right? You can't set yourself up with a 3 hour gym routine. You can't do it. There's too much prep, there's too much preparation that goes into a 3 hour gym routine, right? You just think you need to be able to read the room, like Mark Smith would say, right? You need to be able to identify the positives, the negatives, the actual tangible solutions that can be like implemented. And you got to know that, look, you're going to do some of this stuff and you're going to start these things and you are never, ever, 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 ever going to see the results. You're just not going to see the results. And we live in a result driven world. If I put into something, I better fucking see the result on that right now. If I give you my time, if I give you my attention, oh my God, I better get X, Y, and Z. If we're building something, by the time this is done, this deadline's done, we better have a fucking building. It better be up. It better be running. I better be turning money hand over fist. We better be, doing whatever it is that our goal was. Sometimes that takes a little more time, especially on the canvas of society. And when you have created something that is really not prepared, when you've created something that is a horrible routine on both sides, not be jaded, is both sides, you're going to get this result. We got news for both, man. Oh man, B-Dub, that's going to be that's a conversation for off the air if you want, man. We got your stuff. We'll chit chat and talk. We'll go down that road. And congratulations on the new venture, career wise. And like we were saying about routine, right? And like we were saying about knowing ourselves and moving forward, there comes a point when what you're doing, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be in a career, whether it be in a personal discipline of a development, it becomes unhealthy, right? And it becomes unhealthy because the level of toxicity is detrimental to all the parties involved. You completely lose who you were. They lose who they were. The business, like all of that is a component, and we survive and we hang on and we hold on and we see the greater good and we see this noble endeavor. Like we're the fucking Don Quixotes of our own relationships and our own world. And what happens is, we're sitting there like the fucking Sancho going like, yo, dude, like our subconscious and people around us and our bodies and our emotional state and our emotions. They're our Sancho, like fucking poking us like, yo, dude, yo, it's you're fighting a windmill, dude. Like you're going up against something that it's not going to move. It's not going to change. No matter how great this sounds, no matter how wonderful, you think it is, like it's just going to keep coming back the same way and coming back the same way and coming back the same way and coming back the same way. And you get into that repetitious behavior, and the repetitious behavior doing the same thing over and over is insanity, right? And then insanity, it doesn't exist for the other party because their routine and their preparedness, it's not wrong. Know yourself, be prepared, figure out a good routine, Good luck to everybody. Enjoy the shows that are coming up later on nofilter.net. Tonight we have Retro Ad, Stephen Luker Play Action Reel. Tuesday evening, Bleacher Brothers final baseball wrap-up show. Myself, AJ Johnson, Chef Tom making an appearance. I'm sure the other guys from Bleacher Brothers Sports Network will jump on as well. Wednesday evening, Bleacher Brother midweek show. Should be a good one. And then Thursday evening, Chef Tom is going to do cooking program. Hey, what's cooking? Now what's cooking, Chef? Friday, maybe off. We'll be off for Dunkin. Get together with the other guys. Have a special guest that's going to be visiting the area for a little bit. So I'm going to show them around the town, take a little bit of a respite. But of course, we'll be back to entertain everybody and pop up on programs and be available. B-Dub, Penguin, Posh, Luker, Play Action, Jeff Tom, everybody else out there in the chat, everybody watching later. Thank you. Have a good day. Again, find your routine. Be prepared for those opportunities. And do not continue to put yourself in a situation where you are the one that is facing the personal struggle and insanity because the other people, the other place, the other thing, they're never going to see it. They're never going to see it. Be healthy to yourself. Be good for everyone else. Take care, guys.